is here. There's a bite in the morning air, the bright colors of summer are slowly shifting into yellows and browns, and the harvests are pouring in. As the garden's winding down, the basement and the cold room are filling up. Most of my harvesting and preserving is done. My tomatoes are all made into sauces and stored on the basement shelves to be enjoyed throughout the next year. And most of my root crops and squash have been harvested and are in the process of curing. There's always this sense of relief that I feel in the fall when all of my hard worked for food is stored away safe and sound in my basement. Spring is all about excitement and anticipation for what's to come. But fall is all about breathing a sigh of relief and just feeling grateful and satisfied with all that we've accomplished.
We pulled these bean plants a couple weeks ago and they've been drying in our cold cellar up until now, and we are ready to shell them, which is a pretty fun process. We've also got 3 different kinds of beans here. We don't want them mixed up, so we're gonna be careful to keep them separate. These here are red kidney beans. We've got 1 box here of black turtle beans, and these are tiger's eye beans. So we'll have to make sure the kids don't get too carried away and we keep them separate.
These are gonna be the star of the show. These are 2 old pillowcases that have lived a good life. Woo, it's windy out here. The trick here is not to overfill your pillowcase. If you overfill it, often you'll miss some in the shelling process. So just get a nice amount in the bottom, not quite halfway full. It's chilly out here, and our kids all think it's winter, so you're gonna have to ignore the coats and hats. This is the fun part. This would be a good thing to do to regulate your nervous system if you're angry. Not too hard though, because you can split the bean open itself, like crack the bean in half. You can tell that they're done once most of these have just kind of fluffed to the top and are empty. I do like to check them a little bit. Every now and then there's still some beans in there. It's very windy, so we shouldn't have a problem getting the chaff off. See that? They're all shelled. Oh my goodness, those are beautiful. We didn't do, I guess, the greatest job of keeping the kinds separate. There's definitely some kidney beans mixed in here. But also some of these are actually tiger's eye that are mostly red. So you can see they have a mixture of the red and the yellow, but these are just mostly red. That's normal, it's fine. I don't mind having the kidney beans and the tiger's eye mixed together. I just didn't really want black beans in here. So I think we're probably gonna leave these. We're not gonna try to sort through all of these. Okay, let's check it and see. Yeah, most of them are at the bottom. Keep going a little bit though. So cool. I definitely try to get most of all the the hulls or the pods, whatever you want to call these, the shells out. But I'm also not just going to be hugely particular about getting every single bean out that maybe is a little dried up or something, because when you wash your beans before you cook them, now not before you store them, but before you cook them, the beans that aren't completely normal will all float to the top, as well as any little flecks of dirt and things like that. Another thing that I will say is be careful to not over pound your beans when you have them in the pillowcase, because if you overdo it, some of them can split apart. So I've been having to calm my children down a little bit here and there.
Michelle's got a few more tips about the beans, but real quick, I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Sundays for Dogs. Cowboy has absolutely been loving this dog food. Sundays is made with simple, high quality ingredients like 90% meat, 10% veggies, and no junk. We want to give all the animals on our homestead a healthy and happy life, and we're really glad that Sundays can be a part of that for Cowboy. Not only is it good for her, but it's really nice for us because it's easy to just pour and serve. Doesn't require any refrigeration. Your common kibble style dog food is heated and pressurized, so you don't have to refrigerate it, but then it loses a lot of nutrients. And then your high quality fresh dog food usually requires refrigeration and preparation. This is air dried, so it still retains a lot of nutrients, but then you can just store it in a bag, doesn't need refrigeration, and it's just easy to pour out. We like things to be as efficient as possible in our homestead. If you've been around for any amount of time, you know that's how we roll. So this just fits right in. If you want to try Sundays for your dog, you can use the link in our description, sundaysfordogs.com/morethanfarmers, and use the code morethanfarmers to get 50% off your first order.
When you are cooking beans that are fresher, that haven't been like completely dried through, you want to make sure that you don't cook them quite as long. Like if you're doing it in an Instant Pot, definitely set it for a lower amount of time because they already have some moisture in them, and they'll get really mushy and overcooked, which is really sad if they're the beans that you grew in your own garden. One of the ways that you can tell that your beans are dry enough to put into a closed container is if you press them with your fingernail. If they leave a big dent, they're not ready yet. These definitely are still denting. So I'm just gonna lay these out or leave them setting out in open bowls and maybe stir them every now and then. I'm just gonna have to kind of figure out what works. I might lay them out a little bit just to dry a little bit more before I put them into storage with a lid on, because I don't want anything getting moldy or anything like that. The first years that we did dried beans, we literally shelled every single pod. It took so long. Like we had these piles of beans and I would sit for hours just like shelling beans in the evening or something while I listened to a story. And it was fun, but it was so time consuming. But this is so fast. I can't believe I sat there for hours. Those are so pretty. I mean, I thought the tiger's eye ones were cool, but these are also just so pretty. Just set them here. These onions are ready for their second cure. And then this first set of onions is ready to go down to the basement. So I'm gonna put them into crates so that I don't get the two mixed up. But I'm gonna wait to put them in the root cellar with the potatoes until Cody can get our door in.
And I am planning to put a door in between these two rooms. It's something that just never got done for as many years as it's been here.
So they're just gonna have to sit down in the basement for a while. It's a big one.
We're ready to get our potatoes into these crates. They've been curing down here on these shelves for a few weeks now. We've got red Pontiac, Yukon Gold, and Kennebec potatoes. They're looking really good. We got about 400 pounds of them. And this curing process has given them time to get a thicker skin so that they store better, and also weed out some of the bad ones. There was a few of them that started rotting really quickly, and it's good that we got those out of the way so that they're not rotting in the crates, because they drip out nasty juices and stuff and they'll start ruining other potatoes. Just make sure, boys, that you are really careful when you put them in there. Potatoes bruise very easily.
Like apples.
Like apples. So you want to be careful with those and keep the varieties separate. I also did want to mention that we haven't seen any signs of the virus Y yet, which is very encouraging. A lot of you will remember that last year our Yukon Gold potatoes got a virus called Virus Y.
One of the biggest fails this year that our seed potatoes they were infected with some kind of virus. It's called Virus Y. There's a brown spot, and then all over the potato there's just like little spots.
And we were afraid they wouldn't store through the winter. They actually stored very well, but we did have to cut out like the bad part inside when we went to cook them and stuff, so that was annoying. But so far we're not seeing any of that on these very encouraging. We grow so many potatoes because they are such an easy food to store. They don't require any processing, as in like canning or freezing, you know, like blanching, anything like that. Just bring them down to the root cellar, lay them out. They cure for a few weeks, and we stick them in the crates, and that's it. And they will store all winter long. We got these shelves cleared off just in time because we've got what will hopefully be a big harvest coming in probably next week.
I'm done with most of my canning. I'm done with all of my tomatoes and sauces and stuff, but the thing that I'm still canning and preserving is raspberries, because these are a very heavy fall crop. I'm just gonna be making jam until I feel like we don't need more jam, which is coming soon because we already have a bunch of jam left over from last year. And then I'll probably just make the rest into a raspberry concentrate, and also on days that I don't have time to preserve them, I'll just throw them in the freezer and we'll use those for smoothies. This food mill is my most used tool in the kitchen during canning season. Absolutely love this thing. This won't take all the seeds out of my raspberries because it has to let the pulp through as well, but it just takes the bulk of them out, like the big yucky ones, and it makes for a much smoother, better experience with your jam. Lately, I've been experimenting with raspberry kvass. I use the raspberry seeds. You're supposed to use like whole raspberries, but I just use a bunch of the seeds with a little bit of the pulp mixed in. You put in some honey, a little bit of salt, and fill it up with water. Let it ferment for 3 days, and you have this beautiful fizzy drink. It definitely tastes very fermented, but I really like it, and it's so good for your gut. So much really good bacteria. You can't drink too much of this at a time. Pretty stout stuff, but it's so good. It's nice and fizzy. It's really good. I think it's really good. A little bit like water kefir. All right, so I have enough raspberries here for 2.5 recipes. I really like to combine raspberries from the last like 2 or 3 days to make so that I can do bigger batches all at once. I'm gonna be using Pomona's pectin to make raspberry jam. I always use this pectin for any kind of jam I make. Absolutely love it. It's non-GMO, and it just doesn't have a lot of the yucky stuff in it that a lot of pectins do. I just make the recipe that comes on the inside of this Pomona's pectin box. They have the ratios of things to put in here, and everything that you need to put in besides the sugar and the fruit is going to be inside the box. 5 teaspoons of calcium water into the cold fruit. Once you've added the calcium water to your cold fruit, just stir it, turn the stove on, and bring it to a boil. Once your fruit is boiling, and then you can add your pectin and your sugar, bring it back to a boil, and then you're completely done. It's amazing. It's so fast. I can do the whole process in around 20 to 30 minutes. Very, very fast jam. The ratio that I personally like to use for raspberries, because they're a little bit more sour, is 4 cups of mashed fruit to 2 cups of sugar. So if you think that sounds crazy, it does feel like you're adding a ton of sugar, but most recipes will ask for 4 cups of fruit to 4 cups of sugar. So I'm literally doing half of what a lot of recipes ask for. And if you don't want to use that much sugar, the awesome thing is that you can use any kind of sweetener. You can use honey, maple syrup, stevia, whatever you want to use, and however much sweetener you want to use, because the pectin reacts with the calcium water in the fruit instead of the sugar. And so you could make jam without any sugar if you wanted to. I don't know that it would taste great, but it would gel up and set up like a really great jam. I ran down to the basement to grab more pint jars and realized that I used all of mine up. I bought a whole bunch of new pint jars last year, and I have used them all. So that tells you how much more food our family is consuming than before. It's crazy. My fruit is boiling. This is always my very favorite part, is adding in the sugar. It just turns it into this like beautiful red syrup. Smells incredible. You just want to get the sugar nice and dissolved, completely dissolved, bring it back up to a boil, and you're completely done. Our jam is bubbling again, so now it's time to put it in jars and can it up real quick. I'm gonna put a little tiny bit of this in the freezer, get it nice and cold, just to make sure it's thick enough for my taste. There's nothing worse than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that you give to your kid and it has runny jam on it. This isn't even completely cold yet and it stands up on my finger, so I'm happy with it. Jam is really easy to can because you only have to water bath can it. You don't have to worry about pressure canning it, and it only takes 10 minutes.